Hey guys, Mackay here with Ironside Ranch, and I know it's been a minute since we've done a video, and I'm really sorry about that. We just had a lot going on in December, and so I think we only did one video in December, but maybe in November actually was our last one. It may have been right before Thanksgiving. So starting this year out, trying to get kind of a fresh start here with the YouTube channel. So again, I apologize for taking about 6 weeks or 4 weeks off, whatever it was, but we're trying to get back to this. The reason that we took so much time off is because we were going to get cows. We just had a lot going on here. We went and picked up, we went down to Florida to get some cows. We'll talk about that in our next video here. I'm going to do one right after this, and we'll kind of go over that. Also, we've been working on a lot of new fencing. You can see here we got some bunch of temporary fencing up. And so things are just growing really well here. We just haven't had time to do many videos. Had a lot of great subjects to do it on, but just haven't had time to put the videos together. That's going to change here. Like I said, we got 2 coming out here for over the next week for y'all, and then we have a few more that are already scheduled, planned, and some of them already shot. So we'll get more videos out and more content out to you throughout the year. So stay with us. Don't again, very sorry for the delay. I apologize for the wind, guys. It's really windy here today. I really wanted to get a video done and get some information and some content out to y'all. So I'm sorry it's a little bit windy today. Let's talk about pastured pigs. That's what this video is really about. And so I wanted to go over kind of our pastured pig setup, how we do this. So ideally, the goal is to get to kind of a Joe Charlatan style farm here where we're rotating everybody every single day. But as it stands right now, I still work full-time off the ranch, so this is right now a part-time income for us. Hopefully here within the next 2 years we'll be taking this full-time, but that's kind of where we stand. So I don't have the luxury of rotating my animals every day, so we rotate about once a week. So setting up the fencing and everything to get them all on rotation, it does take some time, and so that's why we just like to do it every weekend. We come out here, we rotate everybody around, we rotate the cows, we rotate the pigs. Everybody gets a fresh new rotation in a fresh new spot. Now we do this in the winter time. Even a lot of people, even Joe Charlatan, I don't think Greg Judy, they don't rotate in the wintertime. And the reason they don't is because they're feeding hay anyways, and so as long as you have a nice deep bedding mat for them to get on, there's no problem with that. Okay, so not to say that they're wrong. Obviously they are both much more experienced farmers and ranchers than I am, but the reason that we have elected to rotate around in the wintertime is simply because we want all the hay and the feed that we're getting them, because we're giving them nice natural organic feeds, lots of biomass with them, and we want that to soak into our soil, specifically because some of the areas that we have some soil, we have some pretty nasty soil. It's just not good. It's clay or sand mixed in with gravel. It's just not good for growing anything. So we want to add that biomass there. That's also why for the cows, we feed the cows directly on the ground. We don't put it in a bale feeder or anything like that. We feed it directly on the ground. That way the waste actually gets absorbed back into that. We're creating that nice mat of biomass because we're trying to get good forage in all these areas, and we're trying to get a nice foothold established with it. Okay, so the pigs will get rotated here in another week or so, but basically for the pigs, I wait until they tear up the ground enough that I'm satisfied with it. Like I've mentioned in previous videos, we're using the pigs predominantly to affect our landscape, to give it for soil erosion, to kind of turn everything over, or I'm not soil erosion, soil tilling, to kind of turn everything over, and so we want the pigs to really tear up the area before we move them on. So these pigs here, we've got 5 pigs here. They're on maybe a quarter of an acre, maybe an eighth to a quarter of an acre, somewhere in that range. And so we're just using them here to till that area up. Then we're going to move them. They're going to rotate to a different spot about the same size, and they'll till up that area, and we'll keep moving them around. That's where this temporary fencing comes into play. This temporary fencing, and there's different versions of this. This one I have not been impressed with, by the way. This one I got off of Amazon, and like 4 or 5 of these things broke off already, and I've used it only a couple times. So very not impressed with this, but luckily it's a fiberglass rod, so I can still make use of the fiberglass rod for temporary fencing even after these things have broken. I can drill holes in it and put wire on there to hold wire and that sort of thing. So it's not a lost cause with these ones, but still very frustrating that some of these they broke on the first use. So Greg Judy says to use O'Brien posts. I haven't tried those yet. That's certainly what we're going to try for our next batch. I'm not doing these ones again. Very, very disappointed. But the principle still holds the same. We have this temporary stake, drive it into the ground, and then we have set markers on here that we can hang our line. So you can see here we have this temporary fencing behind us, and we have 1 wire and then 2 wires right there. So this one's about, what, 6 inches off the ground. This one's a good this holds the pigs in for just about any size. It'll hold them in from little itty bitty piglets all the way to full grown. So that's why we use this 2-wire system here. Now, a couple things to remember on this. One, for the pigs, you need at least 4,000 volts, but the closer you can get to 8,000 volts on the wire, the better. We have everything run at 8,000 volts because that's what the cows need to keep them off of it, and 8,000 volts really gives the pig a good enough zap to get them pushed back. So closer to 8,000 volts you can get, the better. Minimum 4,000 volts. Now the other thing is you'll notice on our farm right now, we have not put up all of our exterior fencing yet. We're still in the process of doing that, especially for this section over here. So this little 2-wire system is actually the exterior fence for these pigs. There's nothing else to catch them should they escape. So what that means is that we have to spend a little bit more time training our pigs to the electric fence, because if you just let them out on this, they'll bolt through it and you'll spend all afternoon chasing pigs back in with grain buckets trying to get them in. Ask me how I know. So so what we want to do is we want to set up a wire like this with whatever post that we're using, and we want to set that up on the inside of our corral, and that way the pigs can get used to it. The pigs can't see the wire, at least not very well, and so what they do see is they see the post, and they'll stay away from the post once they see them. And some of our pigs are so well trained to it, our breeding stock pigs, that I don't even need to set up wire. All I have to do is put in posts and they won't go near it. They'll come up to it and then run away. So they're so well trained to that wire, but again, it's because they can't see that wire's not actually there yet. So for them, I just set up the post first, and then I let them into the next pasture I'm putting them in, and then we run the wire while they're in there already eating. And it's simply because they're not going to go anywhere near these posts. These pigs were not used to it yet, so what we had issues with them bolting out and everything because we didn't take the time to train these ones to it. We will spend a little bit more time training these ones on the next batch that we do. Now there's various options of tying this in. You can see here that we just used a cheap reel that the wire actually came on for this section here. I keep this small one around for closing in one short side of the corral, or the little pig pen. For the other side, we have on the electric reels, we have electric wire reels. That a little bit better option there, but for this side it isn't about 30 feet of wire, so it's kind of nice just to have it set up like that. Obviously we tie it off here, and we tie it off to a hotline there. Now I tie the top one off to a hotline, and you can see here this bottom line is actually on a separate charger, so we have 1, 2, 3 lines on this that are on the same charger. And then the bottom line I put on a separate charger. And the reason I do that is because the bottom line is the one that grounds out the most. And so we have that one set up to ground out separately from these ones here. And you can do it on the same controller or a separate controller. If you do it on the same controller, just run a separate wire down to connect the bottom one. But the reason that we do that is so that when the bottom wire grounds out, because inevitably the bottom wires will, you can see over here we got some broom grass growing up over here, and that's causing that that's going to cause that to ground out in some areas. So in some parts of this bottom wire, we're only getting 4,000 volts, but everywhere on this top wire, I'm getting 8,000 volts. And so I get them all a really, really good shock with that. So we tie into our perimeter fence here, and then we rotate this around. You can see that we have all these posts going around. And like I said, it really depends on what animal you're doing, how far apart you want to space these. For the cows, I've got 4 in there. Wires all droop down between it. The cows just stay away. They can see the wire. They don't want to get shocked. It's a psychological barrier for them anyways. The pigs, we put a little bit more because the pigs get zapped and they have a tendency of pushing through it, so we don't want that sagging and pulling and stretching. So I put these a little bit more often. Put them about every 10 feet for the pigs. You wouldn't have to do that if they were really well trained. Now the last thing, we can use metal posts when we want to use metal posts in the corners. We can use metal T-posts. We can use pieces of rebar with insulators on them, and those work fairly well in the corner. I found it's not really needed because we don't pull the wire that tight. I pull it hand tight, I tie it off, and then the wire will flex a little bit, give a little bit, some of the posts will warp in, and so there'll be a little bit of flex and give in there anyways in a day or two. So I don't worry about it. I just pull the wires hand tight, and that seems to work just fine. So I usually, in theory, try to round these instead of making these into a corner post, though I never actually end up doing that. I always just have one staked in the corner, and it doesn't really give us any problems. The one caveat on that is that These you have to press in, and they don't particularly go into crappy soil well. So if you have really crappy, really hard soil, the T-posts are a little bit nicer because you can pound them in with a hammer, and that just it makes life a little bit easier in that regard. So just something to consider on how you're trying to get this set up. The best way to do this is to have your perimeter fence going all the way around and use this to dissect areas. We have not got our perimeter fence all the way done yet on this side, and so we don't have that option yet. We will here soon, but as of right now, I just don't have that luxury to do that. We set up the temporary fencing during the day, and then at night all the animals go into a corral. We've got separate corrals built for everybody around, and so they all go into a corral. Now the cows right now, that I don't trust them to be able to get them back in. We actually had one of our heifers run off the other day, and she just bolted straight through the high tensile wire, and so the cows I don't trust to do that with. The pigs, it's not quite as much money into a pig as it is into a cow, and so it's not quite as catastrophic if they don't come back, but more than that, pigs seem to come back easier than cows do. Pigs will come back to the grain, or they come back, I just usually grab a stick and I can herd them right back in. They're not particularly hard to get moved. The cows, since we don't grain feed our cows, since everybody's grass fed, it's a little bit harder because you can't entice a cow with a big bale of hay when they've got all this fresh forage around here. So it makes it a little bit more difficult to get them to come back in. So that's why for the cows we don't take that risk. Now as far as the wire brands go, we have some cheap wire brands, some of that yellow crap that you get at Tractor Supply. That seems to work about as effectively as any of the nicer stuff. It's a matter of whether it'll have the longevity, and I sincerely doubt it. But right now we're kind of just testing them and seeing, and I had a bunch of that Tractor Supply wire laying around, so I thought, well, we'll give it a shot and see how it does, and kind of compare it over the long term to Gallagher, which is just a known brand, not necessarily the best brand, but it's kind of a Ford Escort. You know, it's a solid, reliable brand. Now the last thing is your fence charger. What controller are you going to use? There's a lot of different options out there, and I'll be honest with you, when we have the money, we're going to upgrade ours, and we're going to get one of the what are they, the Cyclone, something like that, where they it has the one where you can press the button and it turns it off on the fence wire. I'm going to be honest with you, that would be incredibly handy to have rather than using a walkie-talkie and telling my kids to unplug the wire while we move things around. But the problem with that is the cost associated with them. Those things will easily run you $700, $800, $900 or more, whereas the typical fence chargers you can get at Tractor Supply are $60, $100, and they're not. They're just as effective as far as pushing those volts out the lines. So having the ability to turn it off while we're out here in the field would be incredibly beneficial, but not beneficial enough to be worth $1,000. We want our farm to be able to make us money, and eventually we want to be able to get our full-time income through the farm. And we're not going to do that by wasting money on luxuries and conveniences. Not that that's necessarily a waste, and at a certain point in time it becomes a necessity when we're moving fences that much and needing that capability. As it stands right now, we have an alternate workaround, which is calling my wife on the cell phone, giving using the walkie-talkies for the kids to have them unplug it and disconnect the charger, and carrying around a little voltage tester and make sure it's off. That works okay for right now for the amount of volume that we're doing. As we continue to grow and as we sell more and more livestock, that's going to change, and we're going to have different options, but for right now we're set with that. Alright, so let's talk about some upcoming videos so y'all know what we got kind of coming forward. You can see I got the Florida Cracker hat on. That's actually what we decided to go with for our breeding stock. We've got some steers that we're raising out for that we're selling the beef from, and those are a little bit different. Those are just mixed breeds. We've got some Shars and some Herefords in there. But the Florida Crackers, we've gotten registered Florida Crackers. We got those from Two Sons Farm down in Florida. We've decided that we're going to use Florida Crackers as our breeding stock. We're probably going to have two bulls. The bulls that we're going to have is we're going to get one registered Florida Cracker that we can replace our breeding stock from, and then the other bulls we're going to probably end up with something like a Black Angus bull, and we're going to cross that with the Florida Crackers. We should get a decent sized cow with a nice frame, good ability to put on meat, nice hybrid vigor, very resistant to what we have here, and be able to put on weight through some of the shrubland that we have here, whereas the typical Black Angus wouldn't, the Florida Cracker can. So that's kind of what we're going for. It also should give us a decent quality beef to sell at the sale barns in the event that we decide to sell wholesale like that. Right now we're trying to sell retail as much as possible, but if the sale prices come up and I can sell wholesale, that's certainly a lot easier to take them all to the sale barn. We also have some farm updates that we're going to do. Amanda and I are going to do a Let's Talk Dirty video so we can kind of show you guys what our plans are going forward, what the future plans for the farm are here, and getting things a little bit more set up and how we're planning on doing that. One of the big things that we're doing to try to get into our dream of actually farming full time is we're cutting costs on our daily life, and so we're going to go over some of that stuff on how exactly we're doing that and what our plan is there, as well as what we're doing to continue converting this land over. Like I said, a lot of this land is kind of cheap scrub land, and we're converting this over into really nice pasture land, into forest land, and to working orchards. And we're capitalizing on the use here. We only have 20 acres, but there's a lot of potential with 20 acres with the right management techniques, and that's really what we're trying to get at with it. So we're going to go over a lot of that with you guys on what we're trying to do, and so we'll have some more videos and a little bit longer videos coming out on doing that. We're also going to talk about some different enterprises that we're going to be starting here over the next year. One of those being setting up a sawmill here. Since we have so much timber, I can cut more lumber than I can probably use. So thanks for watching, guys. Again, sorry it's been so long since we've done a video. Stick with us. We'll have some more content out to you soon. Make sure and like the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and check us out on Facebook. Thanks.